Hello. Hello. Hello, hello, hello. Alright. Now, forgive me all, because I do know that I'm quite late on this live stream. But at least I'm doing it right now. But yes, no, I know we are severely past 700 subscribers. We are almost at 800. In fact, I am really hopeful that we'll reach 800 by tomorrow, because then that means I'll just do another live stream tomorrow. So then, you know, I knock out two birds with one stone. It'd be pretty awesome to do it before I have to go back to work. But yeah. Alright, I gotta go text in Discord real quick. Let everybody know. Well, everybody who's in Discord. Normally, when I tell people in Discord, they know. we go. Yes, hello, hello. Hola, hi. What's up? Alright. I have now texted in my Discord. Ooh. What's up with this stupid weather? My god. I want it to stop snowing so bad. I just want to wash my car. I just want to wash my car. I hate this salt. I hate the salt. I hate it all. Now, the snow doesn't really bother me all that much, but the salt and stuff, oh my god, it annoys me. Anyways. Oh! My back keeps on going numb. And I'm actually kind of scared. Because I don't feel like my back should be getting numb. Alright, let's look for some videos to watch today. Let's see here. If you guys have any suggestions, as always, put it down. I can see your comments. But let's see here. Let's go to YouTube. So what we gonna watch today? Such joyful music. I'm turning it off. It is going away. Music is now gone. Alright, let's see here. Just scrolling through YouTube's For You page until you guys tell me what to watch or until I find something that looks interesting. Apparently, China got a different King Kong trailer. King Kong versus Godzilla. Nothing much. What's up with you? How you doing? Yeah, apparently China got a different King Kong versus Godzilla trailer. And it seems pretty interesting because it seems like they got a bit more footage than we got, and apparently it has heavy spoilers in it. So I have avoided watching it because I do not feel like spoiling that awesome, awesome movie for me. Alright. Let's see here. God, I don't know what to watch. There's so many things. What is this? Of course,
Quality
Grammarly.
writing makes your schoolwork better.
Has to be Grammarly.
And helps you stand out in the process.
Well, what is this? I don't know
Meet
what this is.
Grammarly.
So you're telling me you met the guy who delivers death to every doorstep, and you survived? Look, he doesn't just show up in a UPS box. He shows up in mailboxes, birthday boxes, food boxes, toolboxes. This guy is nothing but a killing machine.
Breathe, Franklin, breathe.
What is this?
Okay, I'm gonna let you know what happened. I was down at the docks delivering a pizza. Hey, I
Watch
think this is
Mr. Ball.
Industrial Drive.
I will.
I got a pizza for Mr. Jax. Oh.
Who sent you here?
You know, the pizzeria. Pudgy's Pizzeria. Oh, hey.
Boys, get rid of them.
How about this? I give you guys the pizza for free. Maybe I can even throw in some of Pudgy's famous cheesy breadsticks on the house.
Were you scared?
Those goons, man, they were terrified. But me, you know I kept my cool.
What is this?
Come on.
It's cool.
Into this, you're gonna get me out too.
I would love to help.
Just step on it, kid.
going on?
Well, you're not gonna be delivering pizzas anymore.
What about the glove box?
Well, you're gonna have to take that up with my boss.
Say another word, and I'll cut your throat. What is it, kid?
Wait, the glove box?
I knew it!
Yeah, man. The glove box.
I knew it! I knew it!
Hold
I
on one
kn-
sec. Mr. Assassin, sir, please. Please just wait. Just wait. I promise I won't say anything.
It's Sam
Please,
Fisher.
Please just let me go, man.
I'm not sure that's gonna come out with just soap and water. You could try scrubbing that with some bleach. You know what? Here. A tip for your trouble.
A tip.
He actually seems like a pretty good guy.
Yeah, he ain't so bad.
Yeah, he ain't so bad. Wait, is that it? Oh my god, that was it. What? What just happened? That was actually cool. Why is that so cool? That was actually pretty cool. I don't know why. That was a neat little film. It was just a random video I decided to choose. It was just a little neat little film, you know? Oh my god. It was so interesting. Oh. Wow. Okay. What's next? Watch Mr. Ballin. I guess. Let's see. Mr. Ballin. Let's see here. Something old I haven't seen of his. I don't want to watch any of his new stuff. Let's see here. Let's see. What's this? Have I seen this?
Today, we're going to learn about 3 places that you're not supposed to go and people who went there anyways.
I don't know if I've seen this one. I don't think I've seen this one.
But before we get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right channel because that's all we do, and we upload 3 or 4 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please bring the like button to Komodo Island to go apple picking in the restricted section and secretly tape a stake to the back of their shirt. Also, please subscribe to our channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories.
Dun, 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 dun. I don't think I've seen this one.
In 2012, 62-year-old Jose Malena was living in Los Angeles. He was the father of 6 children, and he had been working at Bumblebee Foods for the past 5 years. One of Jose's responsibilities at the plant was loading the massive industrial oven that was 54 inches wide by 36 feet long with these huge pallets of tuna in cans. The oven was designed to sterilize the actual can itself and process the tuna inside of them. At 4 a.m. on October 11th, Jose arrived at the Santa Fe Springs plant where he worked, and his supervisor immediately tasked him with loading a particular oven. So Jose left and got 12,000 pounds of tuna in cans, and he put them on this dolly, and he wheeled it over to the oven. He walked over and opened up the oven door, and he looked inside, and he saw there was a loose chain in the back. And so even though he knew he wasn't supposed to go inside of the oven for obvious reasons, he knew he could fix that chain in just a couple of minutes. And so he decided he would just go in there and get it done.
No!
A couple of hours later, a supervisor asked the other workers if they had seen Jose, and no one had. And so they searched the inside of the plant. He was nowhere to be seen. His workstation at that oven had been cleaned up. They called out to him on the intercom to come up to the office, but he didn't show up. They went outside and they found his car was still parked in the parking lot. When they went back inside, everybody was just stumped about where Jose could have gone. And so they searched the building one more time, and then finally one of the workers said, "The only place we haven't looked is inside the oven he was last seen loading." And so they turned off the oven, but they had to wait 30 minutes for it to cool down before it was safe to go inside.
No.
And when they finally opened up the door, they found Jose pressed up against the inside of the door,
No.
trying to get out. He had been cooked alive.
Oh
Earlier,
my
when Jose
God.
had gone inside of the oven to fix that loose chain, he had left all 12,000 pounds of this tuna sitting on a pallet dolly right outside the entrance to this oven. And so another co-worker had been walking down the row of ovens, and the door to the oven swings out, and so it would have blocked his view to look inside of the oven. And this worker saw this huge pallet of tuna sitting right outside, ready to be pushed directly into the oven. And so he assumed Jose must have stepped away to go to the bathroom. And so thinking he was doing him a favor, he walked over and pushed the pallets right inside, shut and locked the door without ever seeing Jose. And Jose, who was at the back of the oven, was probably caught off guard by the pallets suddenly coming in, and they boxed him in. He could not have ran to the front to get out in time. And it was so loud inside of the plant that even if Jose had been yelling, "Hey, I'm in here," it's unlikely the other coworker would have heard him. Once Jose's coworker turned on the oven he was inside of, it would not have immediately heated up to lethal temperatures.
Oh,
in fact, it was a fairly gradual heating process up to 270 degrees over a 2-hour period. And the human body can survive at 200 degrees or higher for up to 10 minutes. But at 212 degrees, your blood will actually boil, and that would kill you. Which means Jose would have had the time to fully recognize the situation he was in. And unfortunately, there was no kill switch inside of the oven, and there was no emergency exit. And so Jose just forced himself along the edge of the oven, past all the pallets to the front door, and banged on it until he slowly cooked to death. The deputy district attorney that prosecuted Bumblebee Foods in the lawsuit that followed this case said this was the worst circumstances of death he had ever witnessed. Bumblebee Foods paid Jose's family $1.5 million. They also paid $3 million to upgrade all of their industrial ovens.
That's not cool.
Jacob Cockle always loved the water. He grew up in a town called Penzance in the UK.
Did
he
I
spent
get
virtually all of his time
paladins?
surfing at one of their beaches. By the time he was 10 years
know what
old, he
that
started
means.
skipping school to go surfing and started getting in a lot of trouble for that. But despite his parents and his teachers' frustrations with him, there was always one person that had his back and totally
I'm
understood
dyslexic,
him.
but I'm
And
pretty
that was
sure
his
I'm reading
older
that
sister,
right.
Grace.
I don't know
They
what
were so
paladins.
close, they developed their own special language they talked to each other in, and Jacob used it so much that people actually thought he had a speech problem. But when Jacob was 17, his life was turned upside down when Grace was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and she died very quickly after that. This had a profound impact on Jacob. It was like his entire view of the world had totally changed overnight, and he began to believe that Grace's energy had been transferred to him, and that it was now his duty to live for the two of them. And so what this translated to is Jacob began taking lots and lots of risks because he felt like he didn't want to pass up opportunities. He wanted to live life to the fullest, even if it was a little bit reckless. In addition to loving the water, Jacob also loved photography. And so with this new risk-taking attitude, he began doing these water-based stunts and filming himself in the process. Things like surfing in storms, or leaping off of buildings into fairly shallow water, or diving to dangerous depths on a breath hold. And Jacob loved it. He loved taking these risks. He loved filming himself taking these risks. And so he decided this was going to be his career. He was going to be a world-famous photographer that specialized in dangerous photos and films. And so Jacob got this big piece of paper and he put it on his bedroom wall, and with black marker he wrote himself a reminder: I will become a world-famous photographer and I will let nothing stand in my way. Basically, he was prepared to go to any length to get the shots that he needed to get. And this intense attitude worked. By his early 20s, he had won major awards with National Geographic and the Sunday Times. He was also a regular contributor to surf magazines where he almost always got the cover shot. Most of his award-winning pictures were taken of the sea in its most violent and turbulent forms. Like the shot of a fishing boat coming back into port in a large swell won a competition that put it all over the London Underground. Or this shot he took, which is off the coast of Sumatra out in the middle of the ocean, as Jacob and his friend are right in front of the supertanker that's bearing down on both of them, and his friend is surfing off the wake caused by the supertanker. So a very dangerous picture to take, but it won an award that was run by The Guardian. The money Jacob earned from these competitions he spent on improving his photography equipment. If he was ever given a physical prize, like a brand new TV, he would just give it away to his friends, because all Jacob was really focused on was going out and living life to the fullest and taking crazy chances and capturing those experiences on film. And one crazy experience that he had always wanted to capture on film actually took place right in his hometown of Penzance. A very strong whirlpool would appear a few times a year in a harbor that was right near his childhood home. It was just a quirk of engineering designed to keep the harbor from silting up. At high tide, the water would come in and it would hit this quay wall, and at the bottom of the quay wall was a tunnel that fed into this other pool. And so that would fill up with water, and then when the tide retreated during low tide, the water in the harbor would drain out and the water from the pool would slowly filter out back through this tunnel, pushing the silt and sand out of the harbor. But sometimes when the water came into the harbor during high tide, it would come in so quickly it would build up against the quay wall and it wouldn't drain fast enough down through that tunnel into the pool. And so just like in your bathtub, if you pull the plug when it's full, you'll see a whirlpool form as the water is sucked down the drain. The same thing would happen at this quay wall as all this water is being forced down and sucked through this pipe. It would create this huge whirlpool that you could see on the surface from the quay wall. And even though this whirlpool only formed a couple of times a year, it was so dangerous. There were caution signs all around the edge of the harbor and on the quay wall telling people to stay out of the water. But in his mid-20s, Jacob ignored those signs and he started jumping into this whirlpool every time it formed. And he was able to kind of swirl around the outside and he would film it inside and just on top. And he would upload his videos to YouTube and they would get millions and millions of views. They were totally beautiful and terrifying at the same time. On May 28th, 2013, when Jacob was 28 years old, he noticed that the whirlpool was back in his hometown and he wanted to go out and film inside of it again. And so he ran to his friend David's house and he asked him to, hey, come down to the harbor and film me inside of this whirlpool. And so by the time David got his stuff together and made it to the quay wall, he looked down and he saw Jacob was already in the whirlpool swirling around. David also noticed that Jacob was wearing a rubber horse head mask. And he told David the reason he was doing it is because it would be more eye-catching on YouTube. So David leaned over the wall and began filming Jacob as he swirled around this whirlpool in his horse mask making neighing sounds. And at some point Jacob stopped and he swam away from the whirlpool, but you could see the pull of the whirlpool was very strong because even with flippers on, Jacob really struggled to swim away from this whirlpool. But he was in good spirits about it and he was laughing with David and saying how when he first jumped in, he was actually pretty scared of this whirlpool. It's definitely the strongest one he had been in over at this quay wall. And David would say, yeah, I can tell from up here, that one's really strong. For the next 10 or 15 minutes, David and Jacob kind of joked back and forth about the strength of the whirlpool, and Jacob would put his mask back down and swirl around inside of the whirlpool, then get out again. And then towards the end of the video, Jacob yells up to David that he only has one more thing in mind that he wants to do with the whirlpool. He wants to dive down below and film it from underneath. And so he asks David to hand down his camera. David hands it down, and you see Jacob adjusting his camera, and then he dives below the surface to begin filming this whirlpool. And so David's up on the top watching Jacob, and he's very familiar with Jacob. He knows he does things like this. He knows he has a great breath hold. But after a couple of minutes, when he doesn't reemerge, David gets scared and starts yelling for him. And when he still doesn't come up, David turns and runs to the other side of the quay wall and looks over that railing towards the pool side, and he can see the water is still rushing into the pool, and there's no sign of Jacob. And so he ran back and forth a couple of times and he didn't see Jacob until finally he went back to the pool side and he saw Jacob down below. He was lying face down in the water. So David ran down and waded out to him, but it was already too late. Jacob had drowned. The reason Jacob was able to swirl around at the top of this whirlpool and not get pulled under is because he had a wetsuit on, and wetsuits are buoyant. But as you go underneath the water, the deeper you go, the water pressure pushes against your wetsuit and it reduces the overall buoyancy of your wetsuit. And so when Jacob dove down into this whirlpool, the pressure pushed against his suit, he lost his buoyancy, and then he got caught up in the current of this very strong whirlpool, and he was pulled slowly down to the bottom. And so he probably fought as much as he could to try to get out of there, but he couldn't, and eventually was forced into that tunnel underneath the quay wall, and he was under there until he drowned, and then he was eventually spit out the other side.
Just don't do stupid stuff.
In July of 1988, 18-year-old Adiana and her husband, Jay Dickinson, were living in Anchorage, Alaska, just 1 month after getting married in Nevada. Jay, who had lived in Alaska for several years before Adiana joined him, had taken up an interest in something called placer mining, which is basically mining riverbeds for minerals like gold. And as soon as Adiana moved in, she picked up the hobby as well. The area they mined for gold was south of Anchorage in Cook Inlet. Jay owned a gold claim there. Over the years, Jay had found it to be very cumbersome just getting to Cook Inlet. Even though it was just south of Anchorage, the roads forced him to drive all the way around the inlet before being allowed in. However, he had discovered a shortcut. During low tide in the inlet, one of the two northern waterways that fed into the inlet, called the Turnagain Arm, would be completely dried up and it would turn into this huge open mudflat. And so Jay could leave Anchorage, go south, leave the highway at the Turnagain Arm, and drive directly over and across the mudflats and reach his gold claim in half the time. On the evening of July 14th, the young couple decided that the next day they wanted to go gold mining. And so Jay checked the tides of the inlet to see what the status would be for the next day, and he was pleasantly surprised to see that very early the next morning there would be a low tide. Perfect for them. And so the next day, the couple got up at sunrise.
Yo, they got a Jeep?
And they started heading south.
They got a
left
Jeep?
Anchorage, they hopped on the highway, and they they went south
Jeep
all the
friends.
way to the
We're Jeep
access
friends
point
now.
to Turnagain Arm, and they looked out in
I
front
hope
of
my
them,
Jeep
and
friend
sure
doesn't
enough,
die.
it's completely low tide, and it's ready for them to drive over. As they turned off the highway and drove down the
Now,
small
do they have
access
a
road that
rain-
brought them
rain-
to the actual mud flats,
I
they
can't
passed
speak
by
right
a
now.
series of signs telling
Dangerous.
them not to go on the mud flats. But
Is that
Jay
real?
had done
Oh,
this
that is
dozens
real.
of times without any incident, and Deanna, she'd done it only a couple of times, but both times it had been no big deal. So neither
long
of
as
them
you got
paid
them
any
mud
attention to
tires,
the cautionary signs.
you should be fine.
Soon they were rolling across the mud flats on their way to Jay's gold claim. But on their way, their Jeep suddenly got stuck in the mud.
Were you
Deanna, she hopped out, she went to the
four
back
high?
of the Jeep and began pressing as Jay pushed down on the accelerator. The Jeep eventually lurched forward and was free of the mud, but Deanna was actually now stuck in the mud.
Oh my
because
God.
as she pushed, she drove both of her legs down deep.
Okay,
into
now
this
just
mud.
hold on to
She
the
tried
back
to
part
pull
of the-
herself out. She couldn't do it.
Oh my
And so
God.
Jay hopped out of the Jeep,
No.
walked around the mud, and
No.
got to his wife and began pulling on her.
No.
He couldn't get her out.
Now he's
but he
getting
told her
stuff.
he had a good idea. He went back to his Jeep and he got his dredge that he was going to use to try to look for gold, and he pushed it down into the mud and began sucking up the mud around one of her legs. And he figured if he just created enough of an air pocket by sucking out enough mud,
No.
she could pull that leg out, and then he could do the same thing with
Just
the
let
other
her
leg.
hold on
And
to
although
the
it was a slow process,
Jeep.
it was working, and slowly but surely they managed to get one of her legs out of the mud right as the 38-degree water began coming in, because tide was starting to come in. Neither of them
Let
were
her
panicking
hold
because
on
the
to
dredge
the
was
Jeep.
clearly working, and if they could just get her other foot out, it wouldn't matter that the water was starting to come in. They would be able to get back to land, back to the highway, before they got caught in the high tide. And so he put the dredge down next to her other leg, and he began pulling the mud out, and it was working, but then the dredge broke, and he couldn't fix it. And Deanna's starting to panic. Jay's starting to panic. He puts the dredge back in the Jeep. He gets a shovel, and he runs back to his wife and begins frantically trying to dig her out, but he can barely move the mud. It's like it's cement. And that's actually the reason why there's so many signs around these mud flats telling people to not go on them. Because there's a very small window of time between low tide and high tide where the ground goes from being solid and you can drive a car on it to being very soupy, and it's very easy to get stuck in it. But before the tide completely comes back in again, it re-hardens. And so if you're stuck in the mud and you don't get out again before it hardens again, you will remain stuck in the mud and 30 feet of water will come in on top of you. And so Deanna's trying to pull her leg out and she's panicking,
God,
and Jay
hold
is doing
on to the
everything he
Jeep.
can to try to get down there and get her foot out, but the ground's hardened at this point. Her
Frickin'
leg
break the
is
foot.
completely trapped inside of the mud, and the water is starting to come in faster and faster and faster. Jay told her he had to run back to the highway to try to get some help. He couldn't take his Jeep. There was too much water that had come in. It's now up to their knees, and so their Jeep's worthless. And so Jay is running away from Adiana, who's screaming for help. She's trying to get her leg out. There's nothing he can do. And so he's running through the water. He gets up to the highway, and he manages to flag down some motorists, and he pleads with them to please come out into the water and help me get my wife out. She's stuck in the mud. And they look out, and she's flailing around and screaming, and the water is now up to her waist. And so two of these motorists actually run down into the water with Jay and risk their own lives to try to get Adiana out. Meanwhile, another motorist took off for a nearby cafe where he could alert authorities that someone is trapped and they need someone out there right now. Very quickly, the fire department and the state troopers arrived on scene, and they look out and they see the motorists and Jay trying to pull Adiana out, and the water has crept even higher up on her body. She's screaming, she's panicked, and Mike Opalka, who's one of these state troopers, he immediately ran over to the fire department and he got this big rubber tube, and he charged into the water and ran out to Adiana and grabbed her and said, everything's going to be okay, we're going to get you out of here. And he gave her the tube, and he says, you need to start breathing through this, the water's going to be over your head soon. And so Adiana, who's shaking because she's hypothermic and because she's terrified, she takes this tube and she's clutching it as the other rescue workers are running down with all their equipment to try to get her out. And then not that long after that, the tide had come in to the point where it was over her head.
Guys,
and
can you
all they
not
could see
just
of
tie a
Adiana
rope
was this
around
rubber
her and
tube
pull
she was
her out?
keeping
I don't
under
care if
water.
her
But
leg
unfortunately,
breaks. She'll
every
be
attempt
alive.
the rescue workers made failed, including getting a helicopter in and attaching a harness to Adiana and trying to pull her out that way. Nothing worked. The first responders and the motorists and everyone stayed with Deanna, holding on to her and trying to pull her out. But at some point,
What? You're telling me they pulled on her with a helicopter and she wouldn't come out? What? No, I'm watching that. No. No. No, I don't believe that. Hold on. I don't believe that.
As the other rescue workers are running down with all their equipment to try to get her out. And then not that long after that,
I'm
the
turning
tide
this
had
up.
come into
What
the
did
point
he
where
say?
It was over her head, and all they could see of Adriana was this rubber tube she was keeping out of the water. But unfortunately, every attempt the rescue workers made failed, including getting a helicopter in and attaching a harness to Adriana and trying to pull her out that way. Nothing worked. The first responders and the
How? How didn't that work? How? How? Huh? How didn't that work? How? It's a helicopter. Hold on. Give me a second. Give me a second. I'm looking something up. This is stupid. Look at this. A rescue helicopter can lift from 1,200 pounds to over 4,000 pounds. That's as much as a car, my guy. It can lift a car, and it couldn't lift her out of the ground. I don't believe that. I don't care if you have to snap her spine off. It could lift her out of the ground. I don't believe that for 1 second. Just cut her leg off. Just cut it off. Just cut it off at this point. So what if she's an amputee from now on? At least she's alive. And one of the transport ones can lift a tank. 44,000 pounds. That's as much as those semi-trucks, by the way. Fully loaded semi-truck, I believe, is about 44,000 pounds. A rescue helicopter can lift about 44, well, at least the, heavy-duty ones can lift 44,000 pounds. And you're telling me we couldn't lift her out of mud? I don't believe that. I believe that we could have ripped her in half if we really wanted to. Why didn't they just cut it off? Freaking give her something to bite on. Start sawing away. Just start sawing away. Lift her up in the helicopter, put a tourniquet on, be gone. I guess blood loss, but it's either maybe die of blood loss or die from drowning while everyone's trying to help you. God, it's so sad. It's so sad.
Motorists and everyone stayed with Deanna, holding on to her and trying to pull her out, but at some point the water was too cold and it was getting too deep, and they could not stay out there with her long enough. Michael Polka, the state trooper, was the last one out there with her, and he was struggling to keep his head over the water as he's still trying to pull her up, and at some point he noticed the tube she had been breathing in popped up on the surface with both ends exposed, so it had come out of her mouth. And so he fumbled with it, but his hand was so cold from the water he couldn't really grip it. He tried to reach down to give her the hose, but she was flailing and panicking, and she couldn't get the hose. She could not breathe through it, and at some point she went still. And Mike knew there was nothing he could do. She was gone, and so he let go of her, and being hypothermic himself, he barely was able to swim back to the shore and get out and go up onto the highway with the others. And there they sat for the next 6 hours as they waited for the tide to come all the way in and then go all the way out again and loosen up to the point where they could go out and retrieve Deanna's body. Unfortunately, had authorities been alerted to Deanna's situation a little bit earlier, they could have got a special water pump out to the mudflats, and it would have been able to get her out even if the mud was hardened. But by the time that pump arrived on scene, it was already too late. The water was well over Deanna's head, and she had already let go of the tube. So that's going to do it, guys. If you found the secret in today's episode, let us know in the comments what it is. And
Well, I'm thoroughly depressed now. Thanks for that, Mr. Ballin. God. They tried to lift her out with a helicopter and it didn't work. How didn't that work? How didn't that work? Why didn't they just cut her leg off? Like, I understand blood loss, maybe, but, like, still, she could survive. God. My first attempt would have been to get the Jeep, park it around behind her, let her fall backwards this way, because your body naturally, all your ligaments go backwards, besides your butt, of course, but your back can go backwards, your knees go backwards, and so it would have been easier to pull her out if she was laying down backwards than it would be to pull her out forward. It actually probably could have snapped her knee if they pulled her out forward. But yeah, and I would have had her hold on to the Jeep like in a grip probably reminiscent to this behind her head, and I would have floored it, pulled her out. Maybe it would have snapped her arm, maybe it would have snapped her leg, but either way, she would still have both of them, and she would heal and live and get out. God, it's so stupid. So sad. I'm sad. Great. Okay, fine. Let's watch something else, something happy. I can't stand that. I'm too sad now. That made me upset. Christopher ain't here. That's surprising. Normally Christopher's here. I wonder, where is Christopher? Interesting. This is going to be the first one Christopher ever misses. I don't know. He's got a couple hours, but it's going to be the first one he ever misses. All right, let's find some happy video, because that was very sad. Very, very sad. Let's find something interesting this time. So that was actually really sad. God. Even a helicopter didn't work. Why? Why didn't a helicopter work? I don't know. I don't know. I'm so sad. So stupid. Let's watch some SCP stuff. Let's watch some SCP stuff. Let's see here. Here's SCP. Well, first we gotta listen to an ad.
Irish Spring Body Wash.
Earn your shower. I actually like that ad.
London is the
That's a
second
good
largest
ad.
city in Europe. And
Alright.
underneath this bustling city is one of the oldest and largest networks of train tunnels in the world.
Is that
But that's
so?
not the only huge
actually
old
true?
structure located beneath the city of London. Below even the deepest underground metro stations of this historic city, there's a whole artificial world of surveillance cyborgs, impossible architecture, and stomach-churning nutritional supplements. So be sure to mind the gap, because we're about to take you on a tour of SCP-1678, also known as Un-London. SCP-1678 is located 1 kilometer below the city of London, England. From all appearances, it seems to be an exact copy of the city, though aesthetically, it's more in line with how it was around the turn of the 20th century.
Weird.
Gas streetlights stand on every corner, and the modern skyscrapers of the business district are recreated in the style of Victorian architecture. The epicenter of construction appears to be the Houses of Parliament, which is evidenced by the more unfinished and flawed the city becomes further out from the center one goes. Some of the buildings are made of nonsensical materials like copper pipes, and some of the gas lamps are nothing more than a ball of disembodied light floating atop a metal pole. The
Weird.
first big question that the Foundation had upon discovering this location was, of course, why on earth was it created? And they wouldn't have to look far, as an explanation of this bizarre mirror city plays automatically upon entering. My fellow citizen, if you are hearing this tape, then the world as we know it is finished. The sky has broken, the ground heaves with the tramp of terrible feet, and all the horror and madness from the dark corners of the world has broken free to exact its vengeance on the world of man. Evil has raised its bloody flag upon all nations of the world and crowned its unholy victory to the broken sky. Yes, this is the end, but there is a new hope. Welcome to Un-London, a city of survivors, a city of the free. Together, fellow citizen, we will wait and prepare for the new beginning, the grand new world that is soon to come. Let the world above burn, we will endure. Let the monsters have their world. We will prepare. We will wait. And I tell you, citizen, that there will be a new morning, and you will emerge from Un-London and stand blinking in the sun. And on that day, citizen, there shall be a new order as we raise the Union flag over the entire world. I welcome you to Un-London, the last city and the first.
Ahoy! It's Minnie.
Interesting.
Me?
So,
All the best toys made Minnie. New
someone
Surprise
built
Toy
this
Mini brand.
city because they knew about
From this
SCPs.
message, it seems that this mirror city was built to be a refuge for survivors of an apocalyptic scenario. But the SCP Foundation had no knowledge of such a plan. In fact, it's still unknown who created this place, or how they did it. The one fact that was evident to the Foundation was that even though this strange place was intended to be a safe haven, it was far too poorly constructed to actually act as one. Illumination was unreliable, and most of the buildings were damp and infested with mold. It's also unclear to the Foundation where the oxygen and gas supply of Un-London was coming from. Throughout the day, the loudspeakers around Un-London play automated messages such as, "No one is safe from the influence of mimetic beings. Bryson's Home for the Poor is here to help." And, "Crime will not be tolerated in Un-London. The tormentors of society will become its defenders." At the end of every hour that passes, the speakers announce the time, followed by, "And all is well." When the SCP Foundation first entered on London, it was unknown whether or not any living things inhabited the city. On first investigation, it seemed from its state of disrepair that the city had been long abandoned. But soon, the Foundation met their first inhabitant of the underground city. Mobile Task Force members were inspecting the area around the Houses of Parliament when they discovered what looked to be a bank. As they approached the doors, they heard the following announcement over the nearby loudspeakers. Citizen, you are entering a restricted area. Have your authorization papers ready. A bobby will arrive to escort you shortly. This signaled the approach of SCP-1678-A, also known as the Bobbies. A single instance of SCP-1678-A appeared with the unmistakable sound of a police whistle, and as soon as it arrived, it started attacking the members of the task force. Another announcement came over the speakers. Police, halt, criminal. The Bobbies are the main threat to visitors in London, and they will attack on sight with any improvised weapon they can find. True to their name, they are all dressed in uniforms consistent with those of London City police officers from the Victorian era. What sets them apart from their historical counterparts is their construction. These beings are made out of human corpses, crudely dismembered at the joints, and reassembled using metal hinges and bolts with their heads wrapped in bandages. Bobbies are extremely hard to kill, with only high-caliber rounds and explosive weapons being effective at putting...
Well, I
This
bet.
is how you
'cause
order
they're
all this delivery food,
All these new things.
all these new things, all of this
very
stuff
ridiculously cheap
for, but yeah.
Autopsies of dead bobbies have shown that underneath the police uniform, the bobbies all wear prison inmate-style jumpsuits.
Interesting.
This adds a chilling context to the announcement about the tormentors of society becoming its defenders. It appears that the bobbies are the reanimated bodies of prisoners.
That's weird.
In addition to the bobbies, the Foundation cataloged two additional forms of artificial life present within London. First are SCP-1678-B, or Eyes in the Sky, hybrid
fake
biomechanical
birds.
birds made of flesh with an exoskeleton of copper wiring. Some of these creatures are covered in a deteriorating outer layer of plastic and feathers, suggesting that they were originally meant to resemble pigeons.
Birds
As
are
their name
fake.
suggests, Eyes in the Sky serve as a type of surveillance drone. And while they have no offensive capabilities, they still pose a significant threat to the Foundation. It's still unclear whether they're able to communicate with or summon the Bobbies, but the SCP Foundation takes no chances.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
The last life form present in SCP-1678 is the strangest and the most frightening, SCP-1678-C, known as the Wretch. The Wretch has only ever been encountered outside the zone, which is now under SCP Foundation control, and it's uncertain how many instances of this being exist. The Wretch resembles an old woman, or sometimes old man, dressed in filthy rags. The Wretch sits at street corners holding a begging tray, and will attempt to elicit pity from anyone who happens to walk by. The Wretch will ask for food or money, but if food is supplied, it will start weeping before vanishing into a puff of black smoke. On a few occasions,
Weird.
audio notices playing on the city's loudspeakers have alluded to this being, saying, "Do not pity the wretch. Allow them to pay the price of their betrayal for all eternity." The current Foundation protocol with regards to the wretch is to not engage with it at all. In addition to the Bobbies, the Eyes in the Sky, and the Wretches, there's another strange component to the world of London. Throughout the city, in any area designed for human habitation, the Foundation discovered multiple machines that resembled modern gas pumps. These machines are fitted with coin slots and rubber hoses that, when coins are inserted, dispense a porridge-like substance advertised as Dr. Goody's Wonder Food. According to posters around the city, Wonder Food is a meal replacement supplement, supposedly containing all of the required nutrients for survival. Wonder Food also appears to be the only food source available in London, despite the claims by various posters around the city that Wonder Food contains all the nutrients you need and completely restores health and vitality. Examination of this substance has revealed that it is, much like the rest of London, unsuitable for sustaining life. Tests have confirmed that Wonder Food is a synthetic starch gel heavily enriched with various minerals, vitamins, fats, and bulking agents, and it contains artificially engineered DNA helix structure.
Ooh, interesting.
Do you like ads?
No.
I don't.
Me neither.
That's why we created Ad Remover.
Cool, I
It's a
don't
product
want
that
to
makes
pay for
so
it.
you never have to see another
Yeah,
ad
but that
on
costs
any-
money.
While it does contain all the elements required for short-term survival, Consuming the product for longer than 6 weeks will result in severe malnutrition and eventually scurvy. Further tests have shown that Wonder Food also contains psychoactive properties. The porridge contains a mixture of unknown molecular compounds which, through regular consumption, make subjects calmer, less anxious, and less likely to resist authority. It also seems to have been engineered to cause withdrawal symptoms that set in if a person stops eating it. Symptoms which include headaches and depression. Foundation personnel are forbidden to consume Wonder Food, but the substance is highly attractive to instances of SCP-1678-B and 1678-C. Like most things in London, the quality of Wonder Food varies wildly, with some dispensers putting out a product that is so degraded that it can cause sickness, deformities, or even death in the consumer. But
Like
strangely,
that?
the Foundation has also recorded a type of unknown colorful mollusk which feeds on spillage from the Wonder Food dispensers. At present, London is only partially contained. Mobile task forces Tau 4 and Epsilon 6 have succeeded in establishing a perimeter around the Hyde Park district, where they have managed to stop any incursion from SCP-1678-A. Even though this is the only area that is fully under Foundation control, explorations have been conducted of buildings outside that perimeter. The investigations are vital for the Foundation's main purpose in London, which is figuring out who built it and exactly what kind of event this underground mirror city was meant to prepare for. The interior of the Natural History Museum yielded particularly strange insights into the purpose of London. For the most part, the museum is close to how it appears in the above ground, but with one key difference.
What is
the
it?
task force investigating the museum discovered an exhibit called The Fall of Man, exactly where the Darwin wing should have been. The exhibit, as its name suggests, details the apocalyptic scenario that would have theoretically driven people underground into London. But to everyone's surprise, its dioramas and displays didn't depict an asteroid impact, plague, or nuclear Armageddon.
SCP?
To the Foundation Task Force members, the scenes of destruction depicted in the exhibit were far more familiar. They
SCP.
recognized the reptilian form of SCP-682, the ordinary-looking brownstone basement door that serves as a gateway to SCP-2317, and most chillingly, the imposing, many-eyed figure of the Scarlet King. These were only some of the known Keter-class SCPs depicted in the museum exhibit. It was clear that even though the SCP Foundation hadn't built this city, whoever did knew a lot about the SCP Foundation's activities. It's believed by the Foundation that whoever or whatever created London still resides in the Houses of Parliament, and the ultimate goal of the task forces is to infiltrate the building.
Yeah.
In order to do that, they will first need to find where the bobbies are made and halt their production. It's believed that Bryson's home for the poor is where they originate from, but it's unclear exactly where the materials to make them come from, nor is it clear just how they're produced. Ultimately, the Foundation's goal is to catalog the entire city, and once they have stopped the production of more bobbies, MTF Tau 4 and Epsilon 6 will storm the Houses of Parliament and contain whatever force has created London. But London is a very big city, and London is just as big, so there's no telling what else they might find exploring this bizarre location. Now go check out SCP-035, the Possessive.
I don't know, but it sounds pretty interesting, not gonna lie. That does sound very interesting. So it's an entire city under London, built specifically for when the SCPs attack. It's going to drive people underground, causing them to live underground in that London area. It's weird. But there's like... I hate the SCP stories that that aren't actually finished. I don't like those, because then, you never know. You never know with those. I don't know. Seems really interesting. Anyways, what's next? What should I watch next? Let's see here. What should I watch next? I'm surprised, not a lot of people are here. I mean, I'm not surprised a whole lot. I didn't expect a ton of people to be here right now, especially since it's later in the day. But I wonder if anybody got the... Did I type that correctly? Yeah, I did. I typed it correctly. Just I guess people aren't getting messages right now. I guess people are busy. Oh well, that's fine. Just means they'll watch it later. Hopefully. Anyways, let's see here. What should I watch next? God, there's so much to choose from. Ooh, this looks interesting. The thumbnail looks interesting.
SCP-4051.
Yeah, what is it?
Your friendly neighborhood Keter. In the world of superhero comic books, it's not uncommon at all for a young individual to realize they possess supernatural
abilities. Is it like a superhero
and
kid?
proceed to use those abilities
my
to
God,
aid
yay.
the world, often through vigilantism. As they carry out this process, they grow as an individual, expand their abilities, tussle with foes as powerful as they are, and generally struggle with the nature of being a superhero. In the SCP universe, there are no superheroes, but there are anomalous humans. A number of them are monstrous horrors with little rational thoughts left. Some of them actively seek to make the world a worse place. Many of them just want to be left alone, and very rarely one comes along that wants to make the world a better place. It's this last type we'll be talking about today, as we see that regardless of the
I'd probably
individual's
be the one that
intentions,
wants to make the
it's the Foundation's directive
place
to
better.
contain them. Sometimes, though, the Foundation goes beyond that simple goal, and that's when problems really start to arise. SCP-4051 is a young male that possesses the anomalous ability of creating temporary wormholes to extra-dimensional spaces populated by a theoretically infinite number of a unique item. 4051 can then pull the item out of the extra-dimensional space, provided that it can fit through the wormhole. So far, 4051 has demonstrated the ability to manifest a number of items in testing, including a small weighted net, a container of sugar pills labeled as headache medicine, and a glass of drinking water. He has also claimed or been reported to have manifested a number of other items, including an aluminum baseball bat, several rolls of duct tape, an incendiary device and blast-proof sheet, and 11 paracognitohazards.
Interesting.
The Foundation discovered 4051 in August of 2012
really...
when a video went viral online of him using his abilities to assault and detain several men. He was identified as Rainer Miller and contained, with a Dr. Roswell conducting an initial interview. Rainer struggles against his handcuffs and assumes them to be from the government. He says that he can make small objects appear out of thin air, and he mostly uses the ability to help people. It started with assisting victims of carjackings and thefts, but recently he's been combating a group called the Looming Shadow, who are stealing money for some purpose, leading Rainer to do nightly patrols. He tried contacting the police, but he believes they've been bought out, and asks if the Foundation could do anything about it. Dr. Roswell says he'll put in a request, and then asks if anyone has seen him use his abilities. Rainer replies that he's tried to keep it quiet, but a few people have seen him. The interview concludes with Rainer stating that he's happy to help the Foundation with them learning about his ability. A few initial experiments are conducted, the first of which involved Rainer being asked to manifest a small cube of lead, an object of his choice, and a container of bleach. After some hesitation, he produced the cube, and then pulled out a framed picture of his mother, and then pulled out the bleach, although he appeared uncomfortable at doing so. The second experiment involved asking him to manifest a copy of the book War and Peace, along with a functioning mobile phone. The book he manifested displayed the words War and Peace on the front cover, but most of the book contained redundant gibberish tangentially related to war, with Rainer admitting he was unfamiliar with the book. The mobile phone appeared normal, but was non-functional, and was completely hollow. It seems that his ability is based on how much he understands the objects he's trying to manifest.
Interesting.
They decide to do an experiment in which he manifests some non-existent objects, in this case a circular square, the color blue, and a statement that says it is false. Before doing so, Rainer asks when can he go home, because he needs to see his family. Dr. Roswell tells him that his mother has been informed that he's engaging in a school-sanctioned college visit, and he can go home once the Foundation determines that they no longer require his ability for research purposes. Obviously, we know this is a lie, but eventually Raynor complies and manifests the objects. All 3 objects turned out to be paradoxical cognitohazards, resulting in Dr. Roswell suffering extreme detrimental effects. The new research lead, Dr. Edwards, sends a request for a pediatric specialist to help maintain Raynor's compliance. Immediately after the test, however, back in his containment cell, Raynor manifests several sheets of Kevlar and adheres them to his body with a strong adhesive. He then manifests a bomb in a blast-proof sheet, using both to blow open his cell door. Stepping out, he manifests an aluminum baseball bat and faces a security team, who were told to use non-lethal weaponry, which proves ineffective against his Kevlar. They proceeded to engage in close-quarters combat, quickly subduing Raynor. This escape attempt results in Raynor being moved into a more secure cell, but the site director wishes to continue the testing in order to find out how useful his ability can be. Primarily, the Foundation is interested in an easier and more cost-effective way of producing their amnestics, as the various ways they currently utilize are not ideal, most notably harvesting the primary component from SCP-3000. If Raynor could simply manifest this component at will, he'd easily rank as a high-tier thaumiel entity. To do this, though, they require Raynor's compliance, so they bring in a therapist to meet with him weekly, Dr. Jane Yesenia. In their first therapy session together, Dr. Yesenia treats him in a very friendly manner and asks why he tried to escape. Raynor says that he wanted to see his family again, specifically his mother. His dad left them when he was 12, and they've been supporting each other since. He goes on to say that despite wanting to see his mom, he's not opposed to living in Foundation containment, as he was hoping someone would come along to help him understand his abilities. The experiments continue under Dr. Edwards, with Raynor instructed to open a portal to manifest a small stone, but a D-Class will reach in to grab it. The D-Class successfully does so, with Edwards remarking that it seems Raynor's only anomalous trait then is being able to manifest the wormhole itself. If they can replicate his ability, they won't need his compliance after all.
Well, that's messed up.
The following experiment involved placing a GPS tracking chip in a portal, closing it, and then opening a portal to retrieve the same type of item. The second portal showed the GPS tracking chip being 9,500 kilometers away, meaning that the portals open up into the same dimension, but vastly different locations. It's also noted that the picture of Raynor's mother he manifested during the tests was different than the one previously, with her hairstyle changed and some moles missing from her cheeks. In another therapy session, Raynor expresses his excitement over the experiments, as he would never be able to test his abilities like this on his own. The following addenda pertain to a new procedure, referred to as 350 Promethean, which involves Raynor's potential ability to manifest the primary component of amnestics, and if they can find a way to do this without Raynor's involvement. Much of this is expunged, although it does mention that there would be an experimental surgical procedure involved, and the entire thing has been marked as unethical by the Ethics Committee after additional review. In the first experiment to initiate the procedure, the results are expunged by the Ethics Committee, but Edwards notes that Raynor broke the straps on the chair and says that he's tempted to get it tranquilized during the procedure, but they need it awake. We see the difference in the cold nature of how Edwards speaks about Raynor versus the more caring and sympathetic nature of Dr. Yesenia. Edwards tells her that Raynor's been getting resentful of his treatment here, but she doesn't see that from their conversations. It's important to note that Yesenia has no knowledge of the procedure they're attempting, and Raynor doesn't mention it in their therapy sessions, so she's unaware of how they're treating him. In another testing of the procedure, they successfully completed it, although the results are expunged once again. It seems that Raynor was actually compliant this time, which helped quite a bit. In a therapy session, Raynor tells Dr. Yesenia about some nightmares he's been having related to a past experience with his parents. At a young age, Raynor had been locked in a closet by his father, who proceeded to grab a container of bleach. It's implied that he did something with the bleach to Raynor's mother, while Raynor tried his hardest to break down the closet door. After that night, his father fled and he never saw him again, although Dr. Yesenia tells Raynor that the Foundation actually located his father while they were compiling his file. He's currently in a prison, serving a life sentence for murder, although the news doesn't greatly cheer up Raynor. Dr. Yesenia writes a note that his mental state is really improving, and he seems to be fitting in here, so she hopes this means that Dr. Edwards' experiments are going well. In the next experiment, the results are expunged once again, and apparently Dr. Edwards had some sort of outburst during the test. He notes that Raynor didn't even remember Dr. Roswell, who is Edwards' brother, and asks why he's assigned to him. However, in the following test, Raynor asked for information about Dr. Roswell's condition, but this was denied, as it would likely affect his mental state. Dr. Edwards says that he believes his outburst had a positive effect on Raynor, and that they're getting close to starting work on Project 350 Janus. In another therapy session, Raynor wonders if he's really helping anyone by participating in these tests, as he just hates not being useful. Dr. Yesenia says that she'll file a request with the site director to see if Raynor can help out with maintenance around the site. The request is granted, and we're given a small timeline of events at the site over the following 7 months. Raynor helps out with some maintenance, while Dr. Yesenia requests information about Procedure 350 Promethean, which is denied due to her clearance level. Dr. Edwards tells the site director that the procedure has produced enough data to move forward with Project 350 Janus.
What is that?
Later, while Raynor is working on a maintenance project, a large-scale containment breach occurs at the site, with a number of SCPs attacking the armed personnel accompanying him. Raynor assists the personnel by opening a wormhole to manifest fire, which causes a gout of flame to continually flow from the wormhole. He aims this hole at the SCPs to drive them back, saving the personnel. Regardless, Dr. Yesenia is ordered to reprimand Raynor for using his abilities during a containment breach, leading Raynor to be barred from any maintenance sessions for 2 months. Raynor celebrates his first birthday in containment, with Dr. Yesenia requesting a treadmill to be given to him as a gift. This is denied, so a chess set is given instead. Later, Raynor assists in the containment of another SCP that broke out, manifesting a wormhole containing methoxyfluorine. A prototype of Project 350 Janus is finally constructed, although it turns out to be non-operational, requiring additional data from Raynor. The following day, Dr. Edwards requests a replacement of the incision tool used in the procedure, which had become extensively damaged by unknown means. A month later, 350 Janus is operational, although it continues to produce a certain redacted object, rather than whatever the Foundation requests.
Oh, God.
Dr. Yesenia requests a review by the Ethics Committee regarding the procedure, although the request is denied. Even though we know that eventually they shut it down, it seems that for now, the ends justify the means. She also requests access to his medical file, but is again denied due to her clearance level. On May 23, 2013, an event occurs that is completely expunged by the Ethics Committee, but on the 25th, Project 350 Janus successfully manifests a requested object, although it becomes non-operational immediately afterwards. The following addendum requires even higher level clearance than this file.
Jeez, what are they doing to this poor kid?
Went along on. Dr. Yesenia wrote an email to the site director in which she says that she can guess what the Foundation is trying to do with Project 350 Janus, and if they really want it to succeed, they should make Raynor feel like a valuable asset to the Foundation. He should be allowed to accompany an MTF in the recovery of a low-threat anomaly, with him being an exceptional asset in the field due to his ability. She admits that she has a certain bias due to having a connection with him, but she does believe that giving Raynor a more active role will be advantageous to the site director, the Foundation, and the people giving money to Dr. Edwards for his project.
True.
What follows is a recovery log from a mission featuring 6 MTF agents and Raynor as they investigated a site of confirmed anomalous activity. The site is a building in Chicago with 2 underground levels, and the Foundation suspects that it's an abandoned nexus for interdimensional travel. Raynor is allowed to accompany the team on the condition that he's been given a slow burn amnestic, which will wipe out all of his memories of the mission once it's finished. He's also been provided standard exploration gear and a gun with rubber bullets. Entering the building, they find some thaumaturgical symbols on the walls designed to make the building seem unremarkable to outside viewers. They continue to scan the walls and the graffiti, looking for more hazardous symbols. Raynor asks some questions as they go, and the MTF treats him as a new member of the team. They find some more hazardous symbols on the wall, and decide to blow up the wall with an incendiary device. Command chimes in and tells the team to have Raynor do it as part of his trial run. Raynor successfully manifests an explosive, attaches it to the wall, and detonates it, with one of the agents joking that their explosive expert will be out of a job at this rate. In the next room, they find many more thaumaturgical runes designed to augment certain objects and individuals, although no one on the team is affected. They continue to search the building and mostly find nothing except more trash and symbols. In the final room of the first sublevel, however, they find a frameless mirror leaning against a wall. One of the agents touches the mirror and finds his reflection staring back at him. He then applies some pressure to the mirror, causing the reflection's arm to buckle and then walk off. Command says that this is not likely the extra-dimensional portal they're looking for, and tells them to search the second sublevel. On the staircase, they hear what sounds like an entity moving around below them, so they prepare their weapons and move Raynor to the back. They descend the stairs, finding a single doorway in front of them, with no graffiti or trash present. As they approach the doorway, a loud screech is heard, and a creature passes by the doorway extremely quickly, resembling a large arachnid with a humanoid head. They believe that the runes upstairs were created to augment this entity, meaning that it possesses enhanced speed, perception, and durability. Their reports of this floor indicate that there's only this small room, a hallway, and a large central room. As they start moving through the hallway, one of the spider entities charges towards them, so an agent equipped with a flamethrower engages it. The creature emits a loud shriek as it dies, followed by several other shrieks being heard from elsewhere in the building, converging towards the team.
Interesting.
The team slowly advances as the spiders attack them, with Raynor using his abilities to manifest flames in order to assist the team. They kill a total of 10 more before reaching the central room, where they find many more thaumaturgical symbols and a large circular pattern of a red liquid on the floor. Stepping into the room, they see a female child huddled in the corner, wearing a thin white dress. One of the agents approaches, noticing that the child has various injuries on her body. The agent asks her if she's alright and if she knows how she got here. The child says that she was in a library in a faraway place, yet so close, cluing us in that she's referring to the Wanderer's Library, frequented by the Serpent's Hand. She says that she was cast out and kept a prisoner from knowledge, left to lurk in the darkened places beneath those holy shelves. The child begins to stand up, but the agent points her gun at her head, telling her not to. The girl says that they cannot harm her more than they did, even if their bullets could pierce her. The agent is told to take the shot, but upon firing, the girl stumbles backwards with a screech before her body distorts and transforms into a massive spider. Multiple times larger than the others.
I knew it.
The agent gets knocked down and pinned underneath the spider's writhing body.
I knew it.
So the rest of the team attacks it while it regains its balance. Bullets have little effect on it, while flames seem to cause it harm, but are not stopping it either. The massive spider grabs the agent's legs and drags her into the center of the circular pattern before mutilating her lower half, causing her to lose consciousness. The symbols on the walls of the room begin to softly glow, and the floor containing the circular pattern begins to dematerialize. A few seconds later, the floor shifts and becomes a portal to a location showing dirty brick walls in the floor of a tunnel, as the spider and the unconscious agent fall through. The rest of the team is preoccupied, however, by the arrival of 20 more spider entities behind them.
Dang.
Despite their best efforts, wiping out 10 of the arachnids, 5 of the spiders manage to grab 5 of the agents and drag them into the portal, leaving Raynor with 5 spiders. Thanks to his ability, however, he manages to survive and take out the remaining creatures. He reveals to Sight Command that he survived because he memorized the symbols they saw upstairs that augmented a creature's traits, and manifested some strips of tape containing the symbols that he attached to his suit. Sight Command tells him to abort the mission, head out of the building, and wait for retrieval. Raynor says that he's going to go in the portal, because that's what heroes do. They disobey their superiors to save the day. Command tells him that disobedience will almost certainly mean he'll never be selected for another mission, but he goes anyways. Sight Command loses connection with Raynor for a short time, but it soon reconnects as Raynor is running down the tunnel. He encounters a semi-physical entity that is currently lifting one of the agents, Morgan, and pushing them against a wall, causing their body to merge with the wall itself. This seems to be causing Morgan an extreme amount of pain, although they are unable to vocalize it for some reason. Further down the tunnel are 2 halves of an arachnid corpse. Raynor opens fire on the entity with rubber bullets, but the bullets simply pass through it. The entity turns to face Raynor, leaving Morgan embedded in the wall, so Raynor manifests fire from a portal. The fire doesn't seem to hurt the entity, but it does recoil, and its form seems to be disrupted by the light. Raynor tells Morgan to close their eyes, and then manifests something else that causes
the
a bright
sun,
flash, temporarily disabling the video. When the video returns, the entity is no longer in sight. Morgan can't remove themselves from the wall, so Sight Command suggests removing their arm that's embedded, which they agree to, rather than waiting. Command tells Raynor to try manifesting a laser and using it on the arachnid corpse first to test it. He does so, easily cleaving flesh off of the arachnid and cauterizing the wound. Raynor then uses the laser to sever Morgan's arm, followed by manifesting some painkillers to provide for them. A retrieval team is on its way in to help out, but rather than meeting up with them, the two decide to head further into the tunnel. Morgan says that they're a former member of the Serpent's Hand, and they know some stuff about the Wanderer's library. They say that the large spider thing they encountered is worse than the Foundation as far as the library is concerned. They tell Sight Command that they need to stop it from breaking back into the library, and tell them to file their reason for breaking protocol as protection of non-combatants. Raynor helps Morgan walk as they continue down the tunnel, and Raynor tells them to not think about the pain, but rather the opposite of pain, although he then says that that doesn't make any sense. Morgan is a thaumaturge themselves, which is likely why they picked this team to test Raynor on, since they were accustomed to some unconventional members. Raynor asks them what it's like to be a magician, and Morgan says that it's great at first, but then eventually someone finds out, and you go to the Wanderer's library because there's nowhere else to go. They say that it's lonely in the library, being trapped with your own self-doubt.
What are they talking about?
They encounter entities engaging in hostilities with one another, one referred to as a shroud that hates the written word and wants to absorb literature into the oblivion beneath its fabric. The other, Morgan is unsure of, but believes that it's an entity that rewrites reality. Both are high-level threats to the knowledge contained in the library, so they were sent here instead.
Oh.
Morgan says that combat with them would be difficult, so their goal should be to pass by without being noticed. The two entities continue their fight, eventually causing an explosion, at which point Morgan and Raynor sprint past, although they are noticed. A shriek is heard, and Morgan says that the shroud is about to absorb them. The two are pulled towards the shroud, with Morgan attempting to use their thaumaturgical abilities to cancel the effect. They now see that the shroud appears as a mass of corporeal black tendrils. Raynor lets go of the floor as he's being pulled in, and he manifests a portal containing a series of white tendrils which rapidly approach the shroud. Upon collision, the two entities disappear, and the tunnel goes quiet. Raynor says that he panicked and thought about how much he didn't want the shroud entity to be here. The other entity suddenly appears, though, as Sight Command loses connection with the two of them. Upon reconnection, Raynor asks Morgan if he killed that guy, but Morgan says that it wasn't human. Raynor says that he manifested its exact opposite, which seemed to have canceled out both things, causing neither of them to exist anymore.
Weird.
At this point, Morgan says that they've changed their mind and are now aborting the mission.
Weird.
But Command denies the order. It seems that Dr. Edwards has been watching the footage of their exploration and wishes for it to continue, with the support of the site director. The two continue on until several tremors begin to shake the tunnel, so they begin sprinting.
He created the exact
As they
opposite
do,
of what
the
it
walls
was.
of the tunnel begin to elongate and contract repeatedly, with eventually a massive entity emerging out of the wall of the tunnel.
What? This thing?
The walls and ceiling of the tunnel warp around it, and it's humanoid in shape, with pure white skin and several runes in a black substance along its forearms and chest. The entity says that it comes as a preventer of misfortune, referring to Raynor as being shadowed in doubt, a thing it has known well. It was a granter of wishes in a previous life, a slave to others by nature, which all came undone when someone said, "I wish for the destruction of the Wanderer's library." Morgan says that it may not prevent their passing, while Raynor suddenly says that he sees no comparison between it and him, although it's noted that the Foundation isn't sure if Raynor said this due to a compulsory effect. The entity says that Raynor sees himself as a free man despite being entangled in physical and mental bindings. The entity then causes a number of runes to appear in the air, paralyzing the two of them. Raynor responds that he is free and he knows his own nature, but the entity says that he is crippled by doubt, with a foreign binding compelling his hand. When the entity reaches for Raynor, he manifests a portal of fire, causing it to retract and the black runes on its skin to glow red. Reality begins to distort around Raynor as the video connection is lost. Morgan is released from paralysis and opens fire on the entity, which is now destabilizing. It eventually disperses its physical form into the reality distortion around Raynor, causing him to cry out in pain. Morgan retreats to a safe distance, while Raynor says that he won't be a slave to this entity as well. The tunnel begins to shake apart as a circle of runes surround Raynor, so Sight Command decides to trigger the amnestic that was previously injected into him. This suddenly causes all of the anomalous phenomena around him to cease, and he falls unconscious for a brief moment before awaking and sprinting down the tunnel, shouting at something to get out of his head. While running, he opens a portal which causes all of the brick walls within 30 meters of him to disintegrate, revealing a large arachnid creature which quickly disappears from view. Raynor chases after it, finding a chamber containing the other agents who are fighting the creature. The massive humanoid entity reappears as well, looming above the group with glowing eyes, at which Raynor tells it to take this, and the log ends. In the following therapy session with Dr. Yesenia, Raynor says how great the mission was that he went on, and how he realized that he can get rid of things by manifesting their opposite, including walls, enemies, and monsters. Dr. Yesenia tells him, however, that his maintenance sessions have been indefinitely canceled, as they can't risk allowing him out of his cell due to the danger he presents to the Foundation and the world. Raynor says that it makes sense, and he's sorry, but he still wants to help. Yesenia says that he can help just by being here, and more importantly, he needs the Foundation. Raynor says that he knows that, and he thanks the doctor for caring for him. In an email to Dr. Edwards from the site director, he says that the emergency activation of the amnestic caused a near-complete collapse of his mental stability, as well as providing him the insight into being able to destroy anything by creating its opposite. Raynor has been immediately reclassified to Keter, as he could now easily escape at any moment if he chose to. And they're attempting to refit his containment cell to try and prevent this.
No, you don't need to.
The director says that the ethics committee is no longer turning a blind eye to the greater good, and will be immediately reviewing the entire project. In response, Dr. Edwards tells the site director to rot in hell, since it's clear that the director is going to be pinning the entire thing onto Edwards. The Foundation is an organization with overall a noble goal: to protect the planet and its people from the threats inherent in the anomalous. That being said, it's hard to really call them a noble organization, as they so often are clouded in their judgments and decisions when it comes to the anomalous. There is a scenario in which Raynor became one of the greatest assets available to the Foundation, an anomaly that genuinely wished to make the world a better and safer place. The Foundation's short-sightedness, apathy, and in some cases disdain for anomalies, however, led things down a much darker road. Raynor was just a young man that wanted to be a hero, and now he's little more than a monster kept in a box.
That's crazy. What does this say? But like, Raynor is so cool. He's probably one of the most powerful beings ever. If you really think about it. He's probably one of the most powerful beings ever. Because he can remove entities just by creating their exact opposite, and they cancel each other out. And he just removes them from existence. That's so... Because if something's the exact opposite of something else, it would look completely different, right? Like, how exact opposite are we talking? I don't know, because that's weird, right? Oh my god, that's so weird. I don't even know what happened in this. I have no idea. It was crazy. Whatever happened was insane. Oh, wow. I'm so confused by it. That's so confusing. Like, he can just... What? Ooh, this looks interesting.
This video
This looks really interesting.
is about two things. The first is SCP-096, also known as the Shy Guy, a horrific monster who murders anyone and anything unfortunate enough to look at its face, directly or through photos or videos. The second is you, because we asked you for your favorite questions, theories,
I
and
really wanna
hypothetical
know what
situations
happens now.
involving 096. We even asked if you thought someone would be safe from 096 on the moon.
Yeah.
And you delivered. If you haven't watched our first video on the infamous Shy Guy, we recommend checking that out first, but feel free to stick around even if you haven't. First of all, let's take a look at the questions you had about the SCP Foundation's most dangerous introvert and see if we can't find some answers. How close would you have to be to trigger it? Like if it was 5 kilometers away, would it still count? The short answer is that 096's homicidal rage can be triggered from pretty much any distance. We'll get into some of the potentially crazy extents of this later on, but if you see the Shy Guy's face while you're sharing a dimension with him, you're in serious trouble. People who viewed the creature's face in different countries or even miles underwater have met gruesome ends.
Yeah, I know
5
about that.
kilometers would definitely not keep you safe. What were his origins and how strong is he compared to SCP-682? The origins of SCP-096 are still shrouded in mystery. All we know for sure is that he was discovered by the Foundation in a snowy mountainous region. As for physical durability,
They've
he's
already
about
fought.
even with 682 as both survived their encounter. We know 682 has the psychological advantage though, as 096 has been terrified of the lizard ever since they met in cross-testing. However, you could argue that 096 is technically more dangerous, since unlike 682, 096 has never been pacified before killing its intended target while on a rampage. If he goes into an unstoppable attack mode when someone sees his face, shouldn't you not show his face in the thumbnail? Thankfully, according to the official documents, artistic representations like paintings or digitally drawn YouTube thumbnails
shut
have
up.
no effect. Only actual photographs or videos of the creature can be deadly. So you're safe,
Oh my
unless
God.
we decide to do a 096 face reveal to celebrate our next 100,000 subscribers, of course. This leads
then
us
everyone's
to our
dead.
next question. If it attacks you when you look at it, then how did the scientist draw the picture of the thing without looking at it? That's a good question, and also one that occurred to the Foundation's scientists who came up with an extremely elaborate solution. They put a D-class tattoo artist inside a diving bell miles underwater and had him unseal a photograph of the creature before drawing a copy. This copy was then released from the diving bell in a sealed container before 096 inevitably got to the poor D-class. Does the Shy Guy have to be viewed through a good quality image to enter a rage state? Unfortunately, no. Even the most poorly rendered or minuscule image of 096's face is a death sentence. One of the most infamous incidents resulted from a man seeing a small dot that was only a few pixels wide in a photo from an old ski trip. The dot was 096, taken from a mile away. No true image of 096 is safe, regardless of size. In some canons, despite 096 being referred to as indestructible, the Foundation managed to terminate it after many attempts and even more bureaucracy. How did they do it? Well, a lot of 096's body has been blown away by conventional arms fire. Its hyper-tough skeleton is what has given it such an indestructible reputation.
It died
In one
via
tale, though,
that.
Foundation researchers actually used this to their advantage and employed the use of the neck-snapping killer sculpture SCP-173. After using 173 to damage 096's bones, powerful acid was injected into the skeleton, destroying it from within. Though, of course, this isn't the official ending of the 096 story, because the SCP Foundation doesn't have a single unifying canon. That's enough questions. Now it's time for you
But
to school
technically,
us.
yes,
Let's look at
it
some of
died.
your favorite theories about the Shy Guy, starting with... I sometimes like to imagine that 096 is nice, but he can't control when someone sees him, and after he kills the person, he starts to cry because he didn't want to kill them. There is actually some evidence to suggest that SCP-096 might not want to kill. A great example of this is its cross-test with SCP-978, a camera which reveals the deepest desires of whoever or whatever is in its photos. The photo it took of 096 showed that it had completely disappeared from the photo, showing its deepest desire was to just be invisible and unseen. Maybe it wants to disappear because it doesn't want to hurt anybody. Regarding the moon question, I think SCP-096 would probably stay in that hostile state until you came back, at which point it would promptly rip you to shreds and do whatever it does to your mutilated corpse. Based on what we know about prior 096 incidents, This feels incredibly likely. It's also possible that it might enter its docile state before becoming aggressive again when you return to its murder range. You really don't want to find out either way. He can just jump to the moon easy. He does squats in containment all the time. While its scrawny physique doesn't make it seem like 096 understands the concept of exercise, there aren't any cameras in 096's cell, so technically we can't prove it isn't doing squats to pass the time in there. I really doubt a blind person would be safe from his effect, since 096 has the IQ of a newborn baby. I think he will count it as looking at him. This is an interesting theory. However, seeing as 096 is able to sense when people see its face from entire continents away, the way it knows if you can see its face might be a little more psychic in nature. Therefore, it's probable that it wouldn't mistakenly kill someone who hasn't actually seen its face, such as a person who is blind. To deal with him, in my opinion, simply freeze him, either in space or in the mountains. His body shuts down, and when looked at it, it will not react correctly. It is simply asleep. While we don't know how SCP-096 would react to a zero-G environment, for a creature that's always nude, it seems extremely tolerant to the cold. When it was first found, it was lurking in icy mountains, and a Foundation agent commented on the fact it wasn't even shivering, despite the incredibly low temperatures. But who knows if there's a temperature out there that's too low even for the shy guy? If someone looks at it in China and it's in the US, then you get on its back, you'll get a free piggyback ride to China. It's a free trip to China and all it costs is a human life. That's my theory. Technically, it'd be at the cost of 2 human lives, unless you wore a diving suit with plenty of oxygen. 096 has proven to be an extremely proficient swimmer, but you'd have to maintain your grip across the entire Pacific Ocean while it journeys to China. In other words, it's technically possible, but we here at SCP Explained would rather pay for the round-trip flight. To each their own, though. But that's enough theories for now. Let's move on to the main event. Hypotheticals. You pose some great possible scenarios involving SCP-096, so we're going to see if we can find the answers. What would happen if someone looked at a picture of it while in or before entering another SCP's pocket dimension or mirror dimension? There aren't any canon examples to prove either way, but if there's any kind of consistent entry point into this dimension, it's likely that 096 would find a way to follow you in. If not, it's very possible that it may just wait for you to eventually return before bringing the metaphorical hammer down on you. So technically, if you were pulled into the old man's pocket dimension and he closed the portal, you'd be safe from 096. But then you've got a whole other problem to deal with. What happens if a person sees his face then gets their memory of the creature wiped? Considering how good the Foundation seems to be at wiping people's memories and their access to amnestics, if this worked, they probably would have made it standard procedure by now, so it's unlikely. What happens if a person looked at it and that person then went on a plane? Or just staying in the air or space, what would it do? 096 has shown the ability to jump up and destroy low-flying aircraft. But otherwise, it's likely that the creature would probably run to a point directly below you and remain there until you touch back down. Since you'll need food and water at some point and aircrafts need fuel, you'd probably just be prolonging the inevitable. What if the young girl was around it, so it tried to attack her but died trying? This is another interesting possibility. SCP-053 is a girl capable of causing homicidal urges, but causes fatal heart attacks in those who attack her. While we can't know for sure how a meeting between 096 and 053 would go, we can use her encounter with 682 as a potential template. Aggressive SCPs like the hard-to-kill reptile, perhaps having an innate knowledge of the danger that comes from attacking 053, tend to become strangely docile around her. It's possible that 096 would do the same. Would we be able to control SCP-096 with the help of SCP-035? The Possessive Mask, aka SCP-035, is undeniably a lot more intelligent than 096, and has even been shown to respond to reason on occasion. It's also been able to control almost every other entity it's been placed on. The problem is, if the mask was placed on 096, and it was somehow effective, the result may be even more dangerous than 096. an intelligent monster with an indestructible and highly dangerous body. There's no telling whether 035 would slowly break down 096 into sludge the way it does to humans, in which case we would be left with an immortal 096-035 combo. So maybe it's best that we never find out.
Yeah.
If someone were to be in the infinite IKEA and looked at a picture of its face, could it finally be contained? And if someone else looked at a picture of it outside of the infinite IKEA, could it escape and kill them? If so, how long would it take it? This is a great question.
That's a good idea.
And while the infinite IKEA is a terrifying maze, SCP-096 has an advantage here that we don't. Not only can it rip through anything in the way with its super strength, it has an innate sense of where its victim is. Therefore, regardless of whether you're inside or out, SCP-096 will still come straight to you to exact your horrible fate. But at least you can enjoy the meatballs while you wait, right? And finally, what would happen if 096 were led into a room full of mirrors and allowed or made to look at its own face? Would it smash the mirrors or try to rip itself to pieces? This is still a hotly debated issue to this day, which, thanks to the no-canon nature of the SCP Foundation, does not have a definitive answer. Some theorize that this would at least be an effective deterrent against SCP-096, while others suggest that it wouldn't be effective, because many believe that 096 is actually blind, and thus cannot see its own face. It can only sense when other people see it. Again, we don't quite know for sure, but it's likely to remain one of the most contentious issues around the Shy Guy for a long time to come. And there you have it, folks. Our very first questions and theories video. We loved hearing what you had to say, so keep...
Very interesting. I wonder who would win, the Shy Guy or Slender Man. It's very interesting. Why can't we just throw a mask into the portal, into a portal? If it's such a problem, why can't we just throw it into a portal? I don't know. All right, well, we have about 10 minutes left before I end up ending this, so. Let's watch this 10-minute video.
Viewer discretion is advised. Police discovered 053 in the deceased bodies of the couple within the same room. Madeline had died from multiple stab wounds inflicted by Andrew, who had died from a massive heart attack. Hello everybody, I'm the Rubber. Today we bring you SCP Foundation Euclid Class Object SCP-053. SCP-053, also known as the Young Girl, is a small 3-year-old girl. She is capable of basic speech and appears to be slightly above average in terms of mental development. Her personality is generally pleasant, and she rarely seems to get upset. However, she will appear agitated when in a large group. Any and all humans over the age of 3 who engage in eye contact and physical touch, or those who remain around 053 for longer than 10 minutes, rapidly become irrational, paranoid, and homicidal. Most, if not all, of these feelings will be directed at 053, and afflicted subjects will attempt to kill 053 after first killing or driving off all humans visible to them. Those attempting to kill 053 will suffer massive heart attacks or seizures and die seconds after inflicting physical damage to 053. However, 053 has a healing factor that allows her to regenerate almost instantaneously from any wound. According to a recovery log, SCP-053 was discovered on July 10, 2008, in Pennsylvania, at the residence of Andrew and Madeline. Police who attempted to interact with 053 also suffered from 053's anomalous effects, resulting in 5 additional casualties before implanted Foundation agents assessed the situation and properly secured the subject. Class A amnestic drugs were administered to all non-personnel involved, including Andrew's parents in Florida, as they had been exposed to information regarding SCP-053 through communication with Andrew.
Jeez.
Since June 5, 2004, Andrew had been sending his mother news and updates on SCP-053. They named her as Abby. Below is the documentation log from 4 years ago, first email about Abby, to July 10, 2008, the last email sent out by Andrew to his mother. June 5, 2004. Hey Mom, sorry I haven't emailed you throughout the past month. Things have been pretty busy, but I have great news. You're gonna be a grandma. We found out yesterday that Maddie's pregnant, and we've already started turning the guest room into a baby room. Good thing I got a pay raise last week. We gotta think of the baby now. Hope to hear from you soon.
Wait, Mom,
come
before
on,
you check
come
out,
on.
do you have honey installed?
What's
Yes,
funny?
yes,
Oh,
I do.
no.
I have it. Okay, move.
March 7th, 2005. It's a girl. She was born last night around 10 at night. Madeline's water broke as she was going to sleep. We drove to the hospital so fast, I think I almost hit someone. Jesus, waiting for the doctors to deliver her felt like years. Now, as I type this email, she's downstairs, fast asleep in Maddie's arms. We named her Abby, and she's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. I'll send pictures soon. March 8th, 2006. Hey Mom, Abby's first birthday was yesterday. Howard and Rachel even showed up. Got to see their niece for the first time. Too bad you and Dad are all the way down in Florida. We'll have to visit when Abby's older. Love you. June 24th, 2008. There's been an accident. We were at the playground and we took our eyes off of her for 1 second, and she fell off of the jungle gym and landed on her head. I saw blood. The doctor said she'll recover fine, but I can't sleep. It is all my fault. June 25th, 2008. The hospital called and said that Abby will have to stay there for a few more days, but she's all patched up and on the fast track to recovery. No brain damage or anything, it seems. I'm just glad my baby is gonna be okay. July 2nd, 2008. Mom, there's something wrong with Abby. I mean, she looks and acts perfectly fine, but I know something isn't right with her. Madeline says she feels it too. We started feeling it after Abby's injury at the playground. We've had the doctors look her over, but as far as they're concerned, they couldn't identify any permanent damage, physical or mental. But I just know there's something wrong with her. July 5th, 2008. We got an email from Dr. Williams today. He says that he's been able to identify problems exist in Abby, but he can't determine if they're physical or mental. It just doesn't make any sense, he says. He claimed that whenever he was around her, he couldn't shake the feeling of wrongness. The staff who were working with him agreed, apparently. He didn't tell us at first because he didn't want Maddie and I to worry, but it appears that he just couldn't keep quiet any longer. What's wrong with my daughter? July 9th, 2008. I can't even look at Abby for more than a few seconds at a time now. There's something about her now, and it just shouldn't be. When I'm around her, I just get this awful, indescribable feeling, like I'd rather be anywhere else but next to my own daughter. I try and limit my interaction with her as much as I possibly can. It's terrible, but being around her, it makes me want to throw up. It's inside of her, in her eyes, in her skin, everything about her. I just don't know what it is. July 10th, 2008. I touched her hand. It felt so wrong. Madeline said she felt it too, but she believes that it's something inside of her.
Slenderman.
I'm gonna kill them both. I'm gonna kill that, and I'm gonna kill that thing. It needs to die. After receiving the last email, Andrew's mother quickly phoned the local police to check on his son. Soon after, police discovered 053 and the deceased bodies of the couple within the same room. Madeline had died from multiple stab wounds inflicted by Andrew, who had died from a massive heart attack shortly afterward, believed to have been caused by 053's anomalous effects. Following this incident, 053 was contained by the Foundation. 053 is to be contained in an area no less than 5 by 5 meters and given adequate room to move. Toys, books,
How old
games,
is she?
and other
Does she
recreational
age?
devices are to be provided and rotated every 3 months. Proper bedding, bathroom, and medical facilities are to be maintained at all times. In addition, 053 is also given 3 meals a day, alongside snacks if requested. Anyone who enters her chamber must wear an eye-covering suit for safety concerns. And while gifts from her are allowed to be accepted, they must be removed from the room. Only one person is allowed in her room in any given instance, and they are only permitted to stay for no longer than 10 minutes. Any sharp objects or firearms are banned from her room, and anyone who begins to act erratically, scream, or attempt to grab 053 are to be removed and quarantined. In a termination test, the Foundation introduced SCP-682 to SCP-053. 682 appeared to be very confused and showed no signs of being affected by 053. Initially, 053 appeared to be afraid of 682 and hid behind a chair in her containment area. 682 then lowered itself to the ground, resting its head on the floor, and spoke after a while. 053 approached 682, and after several seconds of hesitation, she briefly touched SCP-682 before quickly returning to her hiding place. 682 had no reaction. 053 approached 682 and pat its head, causing it to exhale through its forward nostrils. SCP-053 clapped and hopped in place several times before embracing the head of SCP-682. For the remainder of the testing period, 682 did not feel frustrated by spending time with this small child, like he did in every other test. He understood that the child was a hated thing as well, one that had suffered like him. They were alike in that way. He had attempted to break out a few times anyways, to find out where the disgusting researchers were watching from and find out if they had hurt her as they had him. This had, however, frightened 053. So, for the time being, he allowed himself to be decorated with a cowboy hat that was too small. Although he appreciated how oddly pleasant and relaxing it was when her tiny arms hugged his scarred, scaly back and demanded to be carried around. Eventually, 053 grew tired, yawning and rubbing her eyes with tiny fists. 682 lifted the child carefully in his teeth by the back of her shirt and carried her off to bed, placing her gently on the mattress and circling the bed once, twice, 3 times before curling around her in a protective little ring. Soon enough, 053 was fast asleep, and he was her new protector. Remember to check out my new animation channel, The Rubber Talks.
What? Interesting. Interesting. That's very interesting for that SCP. You know? That's so weird. Do you think maybe he was just doing it so he wouldn't die? Or do you think he honestly just wasn't affected? I don't know. I don't know. Maybe he just wasn't affected. Well, I guess not. Anyways, it's been 2 hours. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you're watching this after the fact, I hope you enjoyed. Yeah, I really don't have much to say. We watched some good videos today. Thank you for the 700 subscribers. It's amazing. We're about to reach 800. It's insane. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. I hope y'all are enjoying the stuff I'm doing. I'm planning to put a lot more work into this. I can't do it right now, but I'm planning to put a lot more work into this, and I hope you're willing to wait. Anyways, guys, as always, stay strong, everyone. Stay safe. Wear your seatbelt, wear your helmet, wear your mask. Don't put the flashlight behind you. Don't look into haunted mirrors. And as always, have a nice day. Bye-bye.